The last thing I expected to lose that morning was the ring. Not because it was expensive, though it was. Not because it was rare, though it was that too. But because it was the one thing in my life I thought my sister would never touch. I was wrong. The ring sat in a small velvet box inside the top drawer of my dresser. I had placed it there 6 months earlier after the accident, when wearing it became too painful. It had belonged to my fiancé. Or more accurately, it had been the promise of the life we were supposed to build together. Until that life ended on a rain-soaked highway outside Chicago. After the funeral, I couldn't bring myself to sell it. I couldn't even bring myself to look at it most days. So the ring stayed where it was. Safe. Or at least I believed it was. My sister Lila had moved into my apartment 2 months earlier. Just until I get back on my feet, she told me. Lila had always been the unpredictable one in the family. New job every year. New boyfriend every few months. New plans that rarely lasted longer than a season. But she was still my sister. And when she showed up at my door with 2 suitcases and red eyes, I didn't ask many questions. Family helps family. At least that's what I believed. The morning I discovered the ring was gone started like any other. Coffee brewing in the kitchen. Sunlight sliding through the living room windows. Lila asleep on the couch after coming home late again the night before. I opened my dresser drawer to grab a sweater. The velvet box was gone. At first, I thought I had simply moved it. Maybe the closet. Maybe the safe deposit box at the bank. But after 10 minutes of searching, the truth started settling into my chest. The ring was missing, and there was only one other person in the apartment. Lila was awake by the time I walked back into the living room. She sat cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Morning," she said casually. I stood there watching her for a moment. Then I asked the question, "Did you take my ring?" Her thumb stopped moving, just for a second. Then she looked up. "What ring?" "The engagement ring." Her expression changed slightly. Not surprised. Not confused. Careful. "Oh, that thing," she said. "Yeah." The word landed like a stone. "You sold it?" She shrugged. "I had some bills." My hands went cold. "That ring was worth $15,000. "I know. And you sold it?" "For $5,000. For something that had meant everything to me. You had no right. You weren't using it," she said flatly. The calmness in her voice made my chest tighten. "That was none of your business." "Well, it is now." I stared at her, trying to recognize the person sitting across from me. "Where did you sell it?" "A pawn shop downtown." "Which one?" She rolled her eyes. "Relax. It's gone." Something about the way she said it made the anger drain out of me, because suddenly I realized something important. The ring wasn't just jewelry. It had a serial number. 2 years earlier, when my fiancé first showed it to me, he explained something interesting. "Look closely," he said, handing me a small magnifying glass. Inside the diamond, barely visible to the naked eye, was a tiny laser inscription. A serial code. At the time, I thought it was just a security feature. But now I remembered the rest of the story. The ring had originally been part of a recovered collection from a famous jewelry theft 20 years earlier. The insurance company had tracked every piece with laser markings before releasing them back into the market, which meant the diamond inside that ring was registered, documented, traceable, and the police still monitored those serial numbers whenever one appeared in the resale market. When I told Lila that, she laughed. "You're being dramatic." "Am I? It's just a ring." "No," I said quietly. "It's evidence." Her smile faded slightly. "What are you talking about?" "That diamond has a serial number linked to a police database." Her face went pale. "You're lying." I wish I was. For the first time since the conversation started, Lila looked nervous. "You said you sold it to a pawn shop," I continued. "Yes." "Did they scan it?" She hesitated. Then I saw it. Real fear. "They might have." I nodded slowly. Then there's a good chance the police already know exactly where that ring is. Silence filled the room. Lila stood up suddenly. You're just trying to scare me. Maybe. I pulled out my phone, but before I could say anything else, the apartment door buzzed. Lila and I looked at each other. Then the intercom crackled. Police. Lila's face turned completely white. The word police echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. For a moment, neither of us moved. Lila stood in the middle of the living room staring at the intercom panel near the door, her face completely drained of color. That's not possible, she whispered. I didn't answer, because deep down I already knew something important. Pawn shops don't ask many questions when someone walks in with jewelry. But when a diamond has a laser serial number tied to a police database, the system does the questioning for them. The intercom buzzed again. Ma'am, the voice said calmly, this is Officer Reynolds with the Chicago Police Department. We'd like to speak with you about a diamond ring that was recently sold. Lila's breathing became shallow. You called them, she said suddenly, turning toward me. I didn't have to. Another buzz echoed through the apartment. Please open the door. Lila grabbed her jacket from the couch. I'm not staying here for this. And where exactly are you planning to go? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. Instead, she rushed toward the door like someone trying to outrun a storm that had already arrived. The moment she pulled it open, 2 officers stood in the hallway. One of them held a small evidence bag. Inside it sat a familiar velvet ring box. My chest tightened. The officer glanced from me to Lila. Which one of you is Miss Carter? He asked. I am, I replied. He nodded politely. We believe this item belongs to you. He held up the evidence bag. Even through the plastic, I could see the diamond catching the hallway light. My ring. Recovered. But that's not why we're here, the officer continued. He turned toward Lila. Ma'am, could you explain how this ring ended up at Greenfield Pawn this morning? Lila froze. I sold it. You're aware it wasn't registered in your name? Her voice shook. It belonged to my sister. And she gave you permission to sell it? Silence. The officers exchanged a glance. Because silence can answer questions faster than words. Officer Reynolds opened a small notebook. The reason this ring triggered a police alert is because the diamond is registered in a national database connected to a historic theft case. Lila looked at him with wide eyes. I didn't steal it. That's what we're here to figure out. His partner stepped forward. The pawn shop reported the sale about 30 minutes ago after the system flagged the serial number. 30 minutes, which meant the police had arrived almost immediately. Lila's voice cracked. I didn't know. That may be, the officer replied calmly. But selling property that doesn't belong to you is still considered fraud. Her shoulders dropped. The confidence she carried only minutes earlier disappeared completely. She looked at me. For the first time that morning, the arrogance was gone. Tell them you gave it to me, she said quietly. You want me to lie? We're sisters. Yes, I said. And that's exactly why you shouldn't have stolen from me. Her face hardened again. So, you're really going to do this? I took a slow breath. Because the truth is, family makes betrayal hurt more than anything else. But it also teaches you something important. Blood doesn't give someone permission to destroy your life. Officer Reynolds closed his notebook. Ma'am, he said to Lila, we're going to need you to come with us to answer a few questions. She looked at me one last time. You're choosing a ring over your own sister. I shook my head. No. I'm choosing respect over someone who never had any for me. For a moment, she didn't move. Then the officer gently guided her toward the hallway. The apartment door closed behind them, and just like that, the storm that had entered my home that morning was gone. An hour later, the police returned the ring officially. I sat at the kitchen table holding the velvet box while Officer Reynolds explained the situation. The pawn shop cooperated immediately once the system flagged the serial number, he said. The ring will remain registered in your name, and the documentation confirms you're the legal owner. Thank you. He nodded. And for what it's worth, the shop owner said your sister seemed very confident when she sold it. I couldn't help letting out a small laugh. That sounds like her. The officer stood to leave. Sometimes people think quick money is worth the risk. And sometimes, I said quietly, closing the velvet box, they forget that every action leaves a trail. He smiled slightly. That's a good way to put it. That night, the apartment felt different. Quiet. Peaceful. For the first time in months, I took the ring out of the box and placed it gently on my finger. Not because I was ready to relive the past, but because the ring no longer represented loss. It represented something else now. A reminder that trust is valuable, respect is priceless, and sometimes the biggest mistake someone makes is underestimating the person they tried to take advantage of.